Welcome to the Ukraine Today YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. It's easy for you and it makes us happy. YouTube's algorithms love it and it really helps promote our content. And now, let's get straight to our topics. Tensions are rising ahead of the summit in Alaska, especially in light of a statement that has just been published by several media outlets. This is a statement from Trump regarding the exact location where he will meet with President Putin. So, it seems that this meeting is supposed to take place in the largest state of the US, in Alaska, as soon as this coming Friday. Meanwhile, according to statements from Vice President Vance, the United States is winding down its military aid to Ukraine. But NATO Secretary General Rutte made it clear that support will continue, regardless of the outcome of that meeting in Alaska between Trump and Putin. Also, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed a peace agreement at the White House, or more precisely, an agreement to begin working on a peace agreement. So this has already been called a geopolitical collapse for Putin, since it seems that Trump has kicked Russia out of the Caucasus. But is that really the case? We'll talk about all of this next.
This Friday, Putin and Trump will meet in Alaska. There are a lot of rumors surrounding the upcoming meeting. For example, some say it would be better if Putin met with Zelensky before meeting with Trump, or that all three should meet together right away.
I don't think that would be all that productive. I believe that, in principle, the President of the United States should be the one to bring these two together. Vladimir Putin has said that he would never sit down at the negotiating table with Zelensky. Now that has to change. We are now at a point where, frankly, we're trying to figure out the situation and things like that. When these three leaders could sit down at the negotiating table and discuss ending this conflict.
There is a lot of talk about the upcoming meeting. European leaders are fully on Ukraine's side. But still, NATO Secretary General Rutte has allowed for the de facto recognition of Russia's control over parts of Ukraine in a future deal.
Russia controls part of Ukrainian territory. The question will be how to move forward after a ceasefire, including what that means in terms of security guarantees for Ukraine. When it comes to the issue of territory, when it comes to recognition, perhaps in a future agreement that Russia de facto controls part of Ukraine's territory, this should be exclusively a factual recognition, not a political one.
Trump's special envoy Witkoff may have misunderstood Putin. Reports that the Russian dictator is ready to give up claims to the territory of Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions in exchange for the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Donbas are false.
Previously, there was a situation with Witkoff when the Russian Federation arranged an interpreter for him, and everyone had already noticed this and told Witkoff that he shouldn't do that. And as for who was Witkoff's interpreter this time, whether he was again provided by the Russian side or not, the story does not say. I wouldn't be surprised if, in fact, Witkoff was given an incorrect translation. And again, this is an organized provocation by the Russian Federation.
US Vice President Vance believes that neither Ukrainians nor Russians will be satisfied with a deal to end the war.
If you take the current line of contact between Russia and Ukraine and try to find some kind of settlement through negotiations that would satisfy both Ukrainians and Russians, where they could live in relative peace and the killings would stop, it still wouldn't make anyone particularly happy. Both Russians and Ukrainians will probably end up dissatisfied with it. But I don't think you can sit down and conduct these negotiations without the leadership of Donald Trump.
A diplomatic solution has to be a compromise, and everyone understands that. But a compromise is not the same as an ultimatum, a Russian ultimatum. So when Ukraine is told, you agree to withdraw, say, from the territory of Donetsk region, and then we'll see, that's not a compromise.
There are also serious disagreements within the Russian leadership. Kozak, the deputy head of Putin's administration and his close associate, proposed stopping the war and starting peace negotiations since the invasion of Ukraine was a mistake. It was precisely for this that Putin stripped him of some of his powers.
But it's clear that the Russian economy is losing ground more quickly. We are already seeing forecasts of zero growth until the end of the year. And it's obvious that right now, the position of the side that is eager for quick negotiations and an end to the war is strengthening. But that doesn't mean Putin is listening to that side. Nevertheless, this shows the different viewpoints in the Kremlin.
In addition, Trump himself landed a low blow on Putin ahead of the upcoming meeting. Azerbaijan and Armenia made peace in the United States, completely ignoring Russia as a permanent partner and mediator. Russia's influence in the Caucasus is fading away.
Armenia and Azerbaijan commit to permanently cease hostilities, open up trade, establish transport links and diplomatic relations, and also respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
This is yet another significant and profound geopolitical failure for the Kremlin, which will undoubtedly have extensive and far-reaching consequences for Moscow's strategic position directly within the South Caucasus region, and in general, from the crucial perspective of a party that can effectively act as a reliable and impartial mediator to achieve tangible and lasting results in international affairs.
Azerbaijan, by the way, will allocate $2 million for the restoration of bombed infrastructure in Ukraine. Also, Baku is ready to lift the ban on arms supplies if Russia continues to strike facilities belonging to Azerbaijani companies on Ukrainian territory.
Now, regarding Donald Trump's recent statement, it wasn't included in the segment just now, but we will show it to you directly. This statement was made at the White House, apparently in the presence of the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, with Trump standing there. Against the backdrop of the White House, he says the following.
It is embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was.
I'm translating what Trump said. He said the following, and it was quite clear. It's truly unpleasant for me to be here in this particular situation and to have to come out and present myself every single time. Please understand, I am scheduled to be meeting with President Putin on Friday. I am indeed going to Russia this coming Friday specifically to meet with President Putin. And I genuinely do not like standing here in this very spot and having to answer questions about precisely how utterly disgusting our capital city has unfortunately become. Apparently he's talking about Washington? Russia? Let's discuss this topic, and not just this one, with international political analyst Maxim Nesvitalov, who is joining our broadcast. Maxim, judging by your face, yes, I'm also experiencing a cultural shock, or maybe a political one, I don't even know. What is actually going on? Sorry.
Right now, I truly feel like Ihor Valeriovich Kolomoisky, just like in that very famous video meme. Yes, I have been inadvertently dragged into some rather complex situations. I literally just joined in to comment on this particular situation when absolutely nothing at all is clear about what Donald Trump actually said. But there could be several scenarios here. The first scenario is that all our jokes about trading Alaska for Crimea, it turns out, aren't actually jokes. So such a territorial exchange might actually happen. And that's why, yes, indeed, Trump is going to the territory of the Russian Federation. Or it was just a slip of the tongue, and now they'll have to decide what to do about it. Either admit it was a slip, or actually change their plans and fly to the territory of the Russian Federation. Or if that's truly and genuinely the case, then it turns out that Vladimir Putin has decisively and strategically outmaneuvered Donald Trump on virtually all significant fronts, even before any formal negotiations have actually begun. That's phenomenal. In fact, even the very fact of holding negotiations in Alaska was already a big reputational win for Putin. That's how Russian propaganda was spinning it. But if it actually happens in Russia, it would be an absolute shock. I just want to believe that the old man forgot to take his pills. And that after a while, some explanation will come out saying it was some kind of mistake. But considering it's Donald Trump, it's quite possible, indeed highly probable, that even if it was a genuine mistake, no one, absolutely no one, will ever admit it.
That's terrible. How can you not admit it? Listen, there's just a series of events here, and everything seems to be screaming that this meeting shouldn't happen or shouldn't have happened, because apparently Vitkov seriously misunderstood what exactly Putin meant. And it's not at all that Russia is ready to withdraw its troops from Ukrainian territories, but rather that Russia is demanding Ukraine withdraw its troops from Ukrainian territories to make it easier for them to advance. Then there's the slip about me going to Russia. Even though the meeting was scheduled, and apparently is still scheduled, to take place in Alaska, American territory, the largest American state. Good grief! What's going on? Well, somehow I find it very hard to reconcile all of this right now.
Let me say,
the big picture.
on my YouTube channel, I have a video where I explain why Trump is not a red agent and why that conspiracy theory is complete nonsense. But right now, I'm just looking at what's happening and even the context itself. When they were translating, it's true, he was also talking about Washington, because he's calling in the entire National Guard there to clear the city of migrants, of homeless people, of criminals, and he practically wants to impose some kind of martial law in the capital of the United States of America. And then there's this announcement.
Yes, I'm embarrassed. Exactly, he said. I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to be here right now. You have to understand, on Friday I'm flying to Russia to meet with Putin. Okay, fine. Let's just proceed from here. At this stage, I suggest we take it as a slip of the tongue. He just made a mistake. He meant to say, I'm flying to Alaska and will be meeting Putin there. Putin will come there, maybe in the context that it used to be Russian territory. Although, again, why even bring up this topic now? but he probably got fixated on that information and that's why he said it. What do you personally think will realistically happen during the crucial meeting between Trump and the Russian dictator?
Honestly, in my humble opinion, this particular meeting is completely and utterly pointless in the sense that there are absolutely no serious or significant developments whatsoever regarding a real and lasting end to this ongoing war or any genuine and substantial progress toward effectively bringing this protracted conflict to a definitive close. Since we live in such an information-driven society, any outlines of these developments would have already made it into the public domain. Well, something would have been leaked somewhere, but the meeting is already on Friday and there is still no understanding of what's going on. Well, at any stage, there is communication between Ukraine and the US, Europe and the US, Ukraine and Europe, and some kind of joint communication as well. And no one has any understanding of what they are going to talk about there. It's important to clearly understand that Trump does not have the authority to negotiate or make any decisions on his own. He can discuss some kind of plan and then propose this plan to Ukraine and Europe. But what's the point of that if Putin hasn't shown any willingness to make real concessions? There's no real progress, no advancement. Why would Putin want to meet with him? That's obvious. Lifting his international isolation, his victimization in this context, buying time, these are exactly what he's been wanting. If this happens in Alaska, even Russian propaganda could spin it favorably for their audience. There's not much pressure on him. China is expressing full support. So why should he suddenly come and make any serious concessions? The pressure here is on Trump, because if he meets with Putin and comes out without any results at all, without saying that we've come critically close to peace, then what was the point of the meeting? There have already been plenty of these. There was Jeddah, there was Istanbul, there was Ryabkov who traveled, there was Dmitriev who came. None of that produced any results. And here, if Trump can't come out after a personal meeting and say, look, I've achieved, well, a phenomenal breakthrough, then it would just be madness. That would really be directly working in Putin's interests. Understood.
Maxim, and this phenomenal breakthrough, what could it even be based on, this so-called phenomenal breakthrough? Well, aside from, say, Alaska being returned to Russia, what else? How can anyone even talk about a phenomenal breakthrough if, in this case, no one is representing Ukraine? Or is Trump flying there not only as the President of the United States, but also as a representative of Ukraine?
Frankly, I'm more likely to believe he's a red agent than to believe Trump would actually represent Ukraine's interests, because he always represents only his own interests in any situation, including when he presents himself as the President of the United States. And all he wants is just to end the war. For him, the main thing is to check the box. That would be the final touch in his goal to win the Nobel Peace Prize, because he wants to repeat and surpass Barack Obama in every way. That seems to be his main political goal. He genuinely hates him, envies him, and wants to, well, he's just such a petty person. He even moved his portrait in the White House to some stairwell where only White House staff and a few employees go. No one else ever sees that portrait. That's how much he despises and hates him and wants to surpass him. And they keep talking about the Nobel Prize all the time. This peace agreement was signed between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which in my opinion is completely meaningless. Because in reality, there are no guarantees of long-term US involvement in this process. Well, it's a ridiculous story. The countries pledged never to attack each other. But these are just some agreements about eternal peace and so on. If something suddenly happens between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the United States will simply ignore it, just as they have before. Well, let's be honest. Even in those countries where they had a military presence, well, in the Middle East or elsewhere, take Iraq, take Afghanistan, what did it lead to? So this is a completely absurd story, just to add another point to their claim for the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, as for Azerbaijan and Armenia, it seems they're hoping they can at least get something out of the old man, realizing that he needs to bargain for at least something for himself and take advantage of the situation. And at the very least to get on Russia's nerves, even if only situationally. But overall, what's happening is a big and in fact very cheap circus act. And honestly, sometimes I just don't even know how to react to this professionally. Take this case, for example. We're assuming that it was just a slip of the tongue. But what if it wasn't? But what if it wasn't?
If not, I honestly don't understand what happened either. Honestly, it's really hard for me to imagine what could have happened given everything we're following right now. I mean, in the lead up to the negotiations, which may or may not be in Alaska, but still. What could have happened in Trump's political or personal life for him to come out and publicly announce that he's flying to Russia to meet with Putin so that everyone would pick up on this information and start actively discussing it? What would he be trying to distract attention from in that case? Again, if this isn't just a slip of the tongue or a mistake, but deliberately announced false information. And what if it's not false information? That would be a third possible scenario. Yes, if he really is flying to Russia, then yes, he caved in. Or was this done to make sure that Zelensky definitely wouldn't take part in these negotiations? So in other words, this guarantees that Zelensky won't fly to Russia.
Or maybe all of this was done just to distract attention from the new season of South Park, where Trump is constantly trying to have sexual relations with Satan. Because that really does get to him. He himself has brought it up before. He was asked, "What do you think about the filming of South Park?" And he said that they used to know how to make jokes. Now it's not funny. Of course it's not funny. Right. Honestly, I think anything is possible right now. The crisis, the global crisis of democracy is just obvious. And in this sense, Trump more and more resembles a symptom of this disease. I don't know, it will take a very thorough review of mistakes and a very serious reset. And first and foremost, in the United States of America, I'm not sure if they're ready for that, because when I look at the Democrats' reaction, when I see what's happening there, how they don't understand what to do next, how they're unable to properly analyze their mistakes, honestly, I just feel like giving up, as they say, and tears come to my eyes. Oh.
My God, I'm waiting for a rebuttal. Seriously, I'm following the news stream. I'm waiting for a rebuttal, or at least a statement from someone in the White House saying, "Sorry, that's how it turned out, but actually Trump didn't mean that at all." And, well, no, still nothing. How long has it been? It's already been 20 minutes since the publication. In my opinion, even the laziest person would have noticed this and definitely released something to refute it if it needed to be refuted. But still, nothing yet. So, does that mean we're assuming he's flying to Russia?
I think that even if it was a slip of the tongue, right now they're probably deciding what would be better. To admit that it was a slip, given that there are already a ton of rumors about Trump having progressive dementia, that he has issues, gets things mixed up, and says a lot of things incorrectly. Or maybe just call Putin now and renegotiate, arrange a meeting in Russia so they can later say that this was the plan all along. Like, he's so cunning, you just don't get it. This is Trump's negotiation strategy. He's a man of chaos, not an old man with dementia, a man of chaos.
Maxim, let's get back to the first theory, so a slip of the tongue. In the US, they're already saying that Trump misspoke. He meant to say, "I'm going to make a deal with Russia." In my opinion, that's a perfect phrase to end on an ellipsis here. So let's wait. By Friday, we'll have a better idea and we'll know whether Trump is actually going to fly somewhere or not. Well, in any case, we'll keep following the developments. Maxim, thank you very much. You analyzed the situation as much as possible, helped us figure things out, or maybe we just confused each other even more, thanks to Trump. Thank you! Maxim Nesvitailov, international political analyst, joined our broadcast. Thank you.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.